Hello everyone, my name is Christian. Welcome back to Tekpon. Today our guest is Steve, the Chief Engagement Officer at B2B Rocks. Hello Steve.
Hello, thanks for the introduction.
Very nice to have you on the podcast. I'll let you present yourself first.
Good, well you already did a pretty good job. So my name's Steven Lurie. I'm the Chief Engagement Officer with B2B Rocks, which is kind of an online community, and also we have an event over currently in Europe, although we plan on moving it around the world, focused on bringing the SaaS community together. And then I have also another role, which is I work for a company called Advisor. Advisor helps companies find the right SaaS tool, kind of similar to Tekpon in many ways, to help improve productivity, and I work for them on their US market.
For anybody that doesn't know, what is B2B Rocks?
Great. So B2B Rocks is an online community where we're really focused on the SaaS industry. And kind of our reason to exist is we really like the idea of the SaaS industry that basically people have the same ideology, have the same skills, have the same view of the world around the world. And we think that there's a lot of problems around the world, and that SaaSes are one of the best ways to do this. So we like the idea. We'd like to make it so that anybody, anywhere can create a company and be part of something. We think it's important that people feel part of something.
Fantastic. And when is your next event? When is B2B Rocks?
Yeah, so we went through the process of rebranding. We Advisor, the company I work for, actually acquired B2B Rocks about 2 years ago. We rebranded it, and last year we did a really successful event in Montpellier, which was...
I was there.
Yes, nice. Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
A really unique event because it was outdoors, surrounded by horses,
yes.
and a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Very relaxing, and so it was. I had a sunburn for the event as well, like I have today, and so we had a great time. And our next event is coming up on September 19th on 2023, and is going to be at Station F in Paris. And so for anybody who doesn't know, Station F is like a huge incubator in Paris.
Okay.
And it's kind of like the Mecca of startups in France.
Wow.
So it really is the place to be, and it's great to be there.
That's awesome. And I think it's the biggest and largest conference in France, right? The largest SaaS conference in France.
Yeah, it is the largest SaaS conference in France. That's absolutely right. And what's interesting about it is last year we pulled from something like 25 countries. So we get quite a bit of international interest. Yep. So the two kind of biggest economies in Europe are French and German economies. So this is a really important one, but we tend to see a lot of German actors there as well as many other countries.
So no need to fear, the event is an international one, not just for French people.
No, and also the event is an international event, and just so you know, for the most part, the event, most of the presentations and all the communication is done in English. So, English is the language of business, English is the language of SaaS, and French people always sneak off to have their French conversations amongst themselves, but when it comes down to the business, it's all English, and so it's certainly no one should have any fear about coming to the event and feel that they might be excluded or something like that.
Yeah. But for anybody that wants to try their French, it's a great opportunity.
Yeah, the French will love you, so you're more than welcome to try, and of course, there's also different ways to participate. So, this is an opportunity both for people that have started SaaSes and want to get ideas about how to grow their SaaS better, different things like that. But as well, it's also an opportunity for a lot of bigger companies to get a chance to reach out to smaller companies. So, and get speaking opportunities and talk with those organizations and explain what they do. So it's good. It's a good opportunity.
Exactly. If you can share with us, maybe you can give us some numbers in terms of attendees, speakers, sponsors, stuff like that.
Yeah, that's great. Well, some things here. So hold on, let me pull up some.
Sure.
I know our newest sponsors. For example, we have all the classic sponsors you might imagine. Mm-hmm. So for B2B Rocks, let me go through a list of sponsors here. So Microsoft, PayFit, SAP, Outscale, LinkedIn, Usign, ChargeBee, Scaleway, OVH Cloud. Those are both big European cloud actors.
Yep.
And the list goes on and on and on. AWS. So a lot of big companies that are the sponsors. As far as the statistics, so it's a single day event.
Yep.
But I think we're expecting over 1,500 SaaS and B2B leaders.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I don't think we'll have any trouble getting those attendees there and getting all the different participants there. And in fact, last year was our first time pulling off the event, and if that was the first for me with putting together an event. And actually, it was a really interesting story. So my CEO gave me not just a free hand, but he was also really supportive about all the different ideas we had to do this. And so we pulled together this event, and we had an amazing effort from the whole team. In many ways, they were working 2 jobs while doing that. But in the end, because of the first year we were putting together a live event, and the event hadn't been in a few years, it was kind of a loss leader for us as a business.
Yeah.
But this year, that's not the case. It's going to be fine. So which is better for everybody considered, because that makes it more sustainable effort going forward. So there's one story about that as far as on the creative process. The only thing he didn't let me do, which is I wanted to do kind of a combination Burning Man, where at the end of the event last year, we burned a giant laptop computer.
Okay.
But that was the only thing the CEO wouldn't agree to. But other than that, he let me do pretty much everything I wanted to do. So it was a lot of fun.
I know you put in a lot of effort. Recently, we interviewed Alex, the founder of B2B Rocks. He told the story of how he started the event. Then he sold it to a PE firm. And then Advisor acquired it from that PE firm. And basically, last year in Montpellier was your first event. And we really enjoyed it. So I know there's a lot of work in putting out this 1,500 people coming to Paris. So we're really excited. I wanted to talk more about SaaS Radio. I know you are the host there.
Yeah.
Please tell us more about the
Yeah, so
the
it's a really similar format to what you do. So it's just an opportunity to meet SaaS actors and have conversations with them and talk with them about what they're working on and how they perceive things. I think when I think about the major opportunities I had for growth coming up, it was really people that I got to listen to and who mentored me and other things. And the great thing about technology now is that there's so many opportunities to go listen and hear what other people are working on.
Yes.
I met with one founder a couple of weeks ago. He's got a really successful SaaS company. They're doing quite well. No employees. It's all him. It's all him, like everything. And you would think it was like a major operation when you look at the company, and it's just him. So I think there's so many different ways to skin a cat. Today I was talking with a guy about SEO as well. And he was talking about return on investment not SEO, I'm sorry, it was social media, talking about return on investment for social media.
Okay.
And so I just think there's just always opportunities to learn. And I think, books are great, infographics are great, but nothing beats talking to somebody. And I think that's another reason why these events are so important.
Absolutely. And you do them live every week, right?
That's right. So we do them live. So we do them live on LinkedIn. And then, of course, like you, we record everything. I guess live, maybe you got to be careful you don't swear. I sometimes also, the couple things I do, which is bad, which is sometimes I speak too much because this really should be the guest that's speaking, ideally. And then any production mistakes you see immediately. So we do it live on LinkedIn every week, but we also have a secondary channel, which is Twitch. So there's no businesses on Twitch. We just thought it would be fun and youthful, and so we're going to go on Twitch, and we'll see. Occasionally, we have some people show up on our Twitch channel, but we'd love to see more people on Twitch and see more people using it as a live platform. I think it's a great platform. Just it's associated with gamers for better or worse, and so no one's on there. So.
Yeah, maybe somebody should create a SaaS for live events in B2B. Probably there are some platforms.
Yeah, it's got to be somebody thinking about it.
Yeah. What do you say is the main differentiator between B2B Rocks and other SaaS events happening in all over the world?
Yeah, that's a really good question. The big differentiator between B2B Rocks, I guess maybe our event is Europe is remarkably provincial. So we like to think of B2B Rocks as an international brand, but we're probably more focused on France and Germany, and then there's other brands that are focused on other regions, like there's SaaS, which has more UK focus. There's another brand that's focused more on Northern Europe.
Yep.
So it's kind of like maybe a little bit more of a regional focus, if anything else.
So they're not competitors.
Yeah, I mean, I went to SaaS last year.
Your partners
I would
now.
Yeah, your partners with SaaS as well. And so, there's a word I like, competition.
Okay.
Which is kind of a mix of cooperation and competition. And there's no reason why you can't compete and also be and cooperate at the same time. It's worked for me historically, and I think these events, I don't even see them as competing, because a lot of these organizations are really hungry for these events. So I don't think they see that as a problem either.
Exactly.
And I think also the other thing is that increasingly, because SaaS has become such from like a day one international business now for the bigger SaaSes, not for everybody. Some people are focused on smaller niches, but for the bigger people, I think they're really interested to go see what's different in each region and kind of see what's going on. And
for me personally, it's a great joy to go visit Sweden for an event, Germany, France, UK, Portugal, Ireland. So I think a lot of people are really enjoying it. And if you get one event a month, I think it's fantastic. And as you said, there's a lot of ask. So no need to compete with others. So you had a great answer. I wanted to ask you
totally.
When did you join the company? When did you join Appwizer?
So I can't remember the exact dates. It was 2 summers ago I joined. You'll have to excuse me. I badly injured my hand when I joined, so I think I was on a lot of pain medications when I joined the company. So, so I can't remember the exact dates, but I think I've never had the opportunity to work on such interesting work before, and I've never had the opportunity to have such absolute confidence from my CEO before. So the role I play in the company is kind of mad scientist, which is great. I've been fortunate enough to read a lot of good books and have an education and work for a lot of really interesting companies, and also have sales and marketing training and stuff like that. So, and the company is a very young company with a great culture of execution. But there are levels to this. And so, I could do things that a young person, or think of things differently than a young person does in their 20s. And so they kind of use me in that role. And like when they have something, like they're not exactly sure what the take is on that. And it's great, because I love it, because I love working with the young people, because they give me great energy.
Yes.
And they also teach me new ways to think, to do things too. So, and it's great also because you see them take confidence. I was working with a sales girl the other day, and I was like, okay, now she's like, how'd I do? And I'm like, well, not so good. In the US, I would have fired you, but since we're in France, we're going to work together, and I'm going to teach you how to do this.
Yeah.
And then I saw after, like on her very next call, she closed the deal. And normally it's supposed to take 2 calls to close the deal. And I just taught her about how to trial qualify and how to work through that. And then you see this person who like takes flight, and hopefully she goes on, starts a company and hires me in a few years. And then we can keep this thing going.
Yeah, it's an amazing feeling that you get. It's very fulfilling. So fantastic.
It goes back to what I said about this being a human industry. I mean, you get to work with people, and I've learned the most from working with really smart people, and hopefully some people have learned a few things from me.
What would you say was your biggest challenge since joining the company?
Since joining the company, my biggest challenge has actually been on the personal side. So so just managing personal responsibilities. I care for my mom, and I had a son that was pretty sick for a year. So I was trying to balance all that while I was doing work. But as on the business side, really hasn't been a big deal for me. I find the culture. I think it's each company has its own culture.
Yeah.
And I think for AppVisor is a company that was originally headquartered in Montpellier, and now we're more distributed. We mostly work remotely. But I think just the culture of execution and how they organize work and communicate internally, for me, is like, it's superior to any company I've ever been with. And so to get an opportunity to be a part of that, and it makes me think, like, someday if I go start my own company, of like how I would do that. And how I would organize things, and the CEO and I are absolutely polar opposites as far as how we think, and yet it's just so much fun working with the guy. Last year at B2B Rocks, there was a moment where there was a gust of wind that came up and blew one of the tops of one of the stages off. And it was the stage I was on, so everybody, like, there was like 100 people on the stage, and they all ran off the stage. And so I'm sitting there holding the microphone. I get off the stage and I go talk with him, and I'm like, this could be pretty bad. And he's like, don't worry, we'll figure it out. We got it going. And so when people are calm, cool, and collected, and express confidence in you, it's great. It's just great. And I think that's one of the great things about our industry is there's lots of opportunity. So if you can prove yourself, then people tend to give you more opportunity.
Thank you for the transparency. It's truly appreciated.
Yeah.
Now, I wanted to ask you, what do you think was your most successful go-to-market strategy for promoting B2B Rocks?
I think it's funny. We did some really crazy ideas on the content side. So we asked some people, like, because it's B2B Rocks, we're like, what's your favorite rock song?
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, so I think just the fun thing is like, some of my favorite marketing strategy recently have very little to do directly with what people are selling. So I don't know, there's a company, a B2C company called Poopery.
Okay.
That sells a spray to cover up odors in their bathroom, and they do these little skits where they show how that could be embarrassing. It's one of the funniest things I've ever seen.
Yeah, but
there's
it shows
another
how to solve the problem.
Yeah, so it does, but it has but it's just so cute. And then there's I think all these companies, like, I think the thing about marketing is that the less direct you are, and the less the more formulaic you are, the rest that you stay. Staid and blue tie and shirt, that just doesn't work anymore. And you need to figure out what your brand is, and then be true to your brand voice, and then express that. So with B2B Rocks, when we relaunched the brand, we made an effort. We wanted to have a youthful brand, energy, focused on community. Those were our things, and fun. And so all our social media stuff that we put up on LinkedIn is very much in line with that. Asking people about what their favorite rock song is. And so I think it's been I think we were authentic. We were true to our brand and true to our voice. And I think that's what's worked pretty well for us.
Absolutely. So B2B doesn't have to stand for boring to boring.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be boring. I think business is really cool. I think strategy is really cool, and I think I grew up talking business with entrepreneurs, and I get to do that for work. So yeah, I'm excited.
That was my next question. I wanted to ask you how you started your career and what is your story.
Yeah, so I grew up. I was really fortunate to grow up in the Bay Area in the '80s, and actually my family was a test family for some of the first Ataris. Wow. So back when they had joysticks like this, if everyone can remember that, we were also test family for the first Apple IIs.
Wow.
My brother, who was an entrepreneur, was actually friends with Steve Wozniak. So this was really heady time to grow up in the Bay Area, and then we saw tech spin off from that. And then eventually we saw SaaS come out for that. And I, of all things, after I finished high school, I decided I wanted to go study English literature. So I went and studied English literature, and then I was like, okay, I'm getting done with my college degree. I got to go make money. I have a lot of debt on my back. What am I going to do? And I'm like, well, I want to go sell ERP for SAP. Those guys were making like $400,000, $500,000 back in the 90s, which was just gobs of money. And so I decided I wanted to do that, and ended up cutting my hair, working out, reading tons of books on sales and different things. And the first company I found to hire me in technology, the first software outcome to company, I actually went to work as an intern for free. And I was managing their email server, buying sodas, like if a programmer had a kink in his neck, I would go massage it. I would do whatever they asked me.
Wow.
And then I ended up finding their first 3 prospects. And we raised $18.7 million from Oak and several other Oak, Excel Ventures, and several other top tier VCs. And I was like, I went in a few years from being a paid intern, unpaid intern, to like making a 6-figure salary in the U.S. with an English degree, and I ended up being one of their most technical salespeople.
Wow.
So I think that's a testimony to
dedication.
Yeah, I think to our motivation. I think it's a testimony in the U.S., which we tend to give people more opportunity earlier, and like, hey, if you can do it, do it. And I think that's one of the things I like about SaaS in the world and in France, which is more people are getting more opportunities earlier,
yes.
which is important.
Yeah.
So that, and it's also a testimony to motivation, which is, there is no wrong background to work in technology or SaaS. And interestingly enough, I studied literature, which as I moved through sales and marketing and business development in different roles, I started to focus a lot more on communication. But the ability to write, the ability to organize my ideas, the ability to communicate effectively, that will serve you well in any industry. But in technology and SaaS, where you've got customer success roles, content, sales, marketing, all those different aspects, those are really useful skills. And you bring a different mindset from other people who have just studied purely marketing or just studied purely another thing.
Oh, that's such a great perspective. So bringing in something that others would say it's useful, it's fantastic.
And that kind of goes back, we're always banging on the diversity drum. Well, why is diversity important? Well, it's because, like, as a white male guy who lives in Southern Europe, I don't really know about problems in Africa. Only Africans know about problems in Africa. And the solution I might propose to an African in Africa is probably the wrong solution as well. So the idea of diversity is you get to a better solution by a plurality of ideas, and then you take the good ideas and you forge them, you hammer on them, and you come out with the best idea.
Absolutely.
Well, it's a really interesting time. The Europe market structurally is very different from the US market. So what we see in Europe is it's balkanized. So you have smaller markets than the US market. So you tend to have different types of SaaSes coming out of here. But what we see just generally is that there's a real maturation happening in the marketplace. And, from personal experience, I know that, unfortunately, from crises, that's when we see real growth. And that's kind of what we've seen of the last, 12 to 18 months. And we see kind of the industry is going through a crisis. But what's happening is really interesting. So one thing that's happening is we're seeing a whole new crop of companies come out of this. So these companies tend to have a more mature vision, much more focused on bootstrapping. I think increasingly companies realize that this is the way to go, because if you're able to achieve this from a lean model, it really makes sense. And also the longer you can hold off getting cash to do scale up activities, or if you can hold off completely, that just puts you in a great position to do this. So I think it's really interesting from a startup standpoint, the companies are more mature, but I also think the investors are more mature. And I saw this happen each time. So I'm old enough to have gray hair and have to seen a few of these. And so I remember, for example, we had the .com era where business ideas were not, there was like petfood.com, and that just wasn't a very relevant thing. And, people were like, well, how are you going to make money? And in the end, what was interesting is people were like, well, I could just buy pet food at a store. And so we saw the .com bust go down. And then there was a kind of a similar thing in 2001 when the economy really slowed down in the US and it was a big shakeout. We saw the same thing in 2008 and 2009. And now this most recent iteration of this. But what's really interesting is how the market, how the SaaS industry, specifically the SaaS industry, B2B market, continues to mature, continues to evolve. And I think there's another thing which I read about today, which is really interesting, which is there's these companies that are successful, like Like take unicorns like Revolut out of the UK. So they were very successful. So we see what happens is it's now like, I think there's something like 20 startups that have been started by people that were successful at Revolut, learned skills, grew their skills dramatically, and then have gone on now to do other startups. And I think that's, for me, one of the things I like most about the SaaS industry and working in technology. And what I've seen spread, I'm originally from California, from the Silicon Valley, and I saw this in the Silicon Valley start in like the 1990s, and then we were talking about it spreading to Austin, Texas. Well, now it's actually gotten to the four corners of the globe. And so what's interesting, this is unique in human history, and I think this is kind of fascinating, which is we have people on the four corners of the globe. You and I were here talking together, and we have very diverse backgrounds, but we have a similar mindset in some ways. Like, we've read some of the same books, and we think about problem solving in the same way. So I think that's really interesting too. And it's kind of interesting because the world has a lot of problems, business problems, and ecological and every other kinds of problems. And it's great if we can turn people to solving these problems. And these people, if they go on, they're successful financially, it's a good industry, then they become good local actors, hopefully, and participate in government as well. I think the other thing, too, is that what we've seen with all the layoffs, and I don't think the layoffs have hit Europe as hard as the U.S. Correct. There's a lot more laws that protect people, especially in Western Europe, from layoffs. So it tends to be slower here than the U.S. But what we've seen, there's still been layoffs. But what we've seen with the layoffs is a lot of these people have taken this opportunity to go join other startups. And I think it's just good for people to change or go do startups.
Absolutely.
Themselves. So it's a really exciting time. And Europe, I mean, this year the statistics are out for 2023, and the UK investment is down. But for the most part, across Europe, investment is flat, with the exception of France and a few other countries where investment is actually up. But this tends to be on the earlier end on the startup scale, because once startups get bigger, then they tend to go to the US, where it's just so much bigger. If you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere. So that always attracts people.
Absolutely.
So it's a really interesting time. And then I think the other thing that's been really interesting that I've seen over the last couple years has been, we went through this period of COVID, and now we're all learning to work remotely. I think it's probably easier shift for young people to work remotely, because I think they're just more used to it, and elder people just have a harder time. As we age, it gets harder to adapt things. But what's interesting about that is I still come back to the same things, which is we're in a really human industry still. And so part of that humanity is expressed, I see the expressions of that humanity, and I relate that to social intelligence, is that events have come back in a big way. Yes. They haven't come back because there's some charitable experience everyone wants to get together and have a good time. It's because they're real opportunities to network, get new ideas, and that's really the key, which is getting a chance to network, get new ideas, and get the opportunity to do business development and sales at that kind of level. Exactly. And then I think the other thing that's really interesting from a human standpoint is the most successful companies today. We have this notion of SaaS, where people create a product, and ideally they create a product that's has a global market. Because there's fewer issues with borders, there's fewer issues with hiring people, there's fewer issues with we can bill anywhere in the world now. So we have business opportunities in a way that we've never been able to achieve this scale at this velocity ever before. So that's a really unique thing. And so that's on a product level, on bringing a product together. But the most successful companies are able to combine that with great branding. And the branding, when I think about branding now, we thought about branding when I went to school. We thought about colors and symbols and stuff like that. I think branding now is, those are elements of brand, but the real part of the brand is the customer experience. The real part of the brand is the onboarding. The real part of the brand is having content that doesn't talk about your problems or about your product, but about your customer problems. And so organizations that are very successful doing that have a high level of social intelligence, have a high level of humanity and empathy, and are really quite human organizations. So there's a lot of things that have been going on, and I think that's one of the reasons. Also, it's a really interesting time because we see AI is coming on so strong.
Yes.
And yet, I kind of see AI just an extension. So whatever values or you're reading or whatever you do, it's just an extension of you, your knowledge,
like
your humanity. Yeah, like a co-pilot. So it's a really interesting time. So I went on for a 10-minute rant there. Sorry about that, but
no, it is. I have one last question for you. Let's not make this too long, but it's already been 30 minutes. I know you do the interviews really long for your SaaS Radio.
Okay.
But ours is
you can cut it down if you want. No problem. You have my permission.
I really enjoyed all the conversation. But I wanted to ask you, what are your top 3 favorite SaaS products that you use?
Oh wow, that's a really interesting question. So my former role before joining IOCHUB was as a marketer, and I still do a little bit of stuff on the side. My mom's an author, and so she's published a book, and so I manage her stuff. So I got to say HubSpot. So I think HubSpot's just an amazing product that fits an amazing need, but also, if you know the story of HubSpot, their content strategy behind it, talking about the problems and and they just nailed it as far as that. And if you know the story of their international expansion, they never made a plan to go internationally. People called them from other countries saying, "We need what you have." So probably that. LastPass, which is my password manager, because I don't know about you, but I can't get in. I feel increasingly locked out of everything.
Yep.
And I think my newest one is ChatGPT.
Of course.
Yeah, I mean, ChatGPT, it's like, I wouldn't ever take anything from ChatGPT and directly publish that. But boy, for structure, for ideas, and for a foundation, it's really great. And then I think to tune it in and make it more human. Absolutely.
Exactly. Thank you so much for joining the podcast. Is there anything else that you want to say on today's episode?
No, just thank you, and I think you're doing a great job.
Thank you so much. I'm super grateful.
All right.
See you at B2B Rocks.
Okay, see you then.
Bye.